welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. You know, sometimes I think that we need to start the program like 15 minutes early when we are in the green room, because my guest today, Craig Shelley, CEO of Schultz Williams, who is in Philadelphia, lives in New York, has vacationed at a very wonderful resort that I live right around the corner from in Arizona. So it's like, you never know how small this world is. And, but we were razzing him because he came at the worst possible time during the height of the summer. So after this conversation, we're going to get you back here when the weather's good.
I mean, just for you travel aficionados out there, if you don't mind being hot, really good prices to visit Phoenix, Arizona in the summer. So just put that.
Oh my God. It's such a scam because it's hot. And yeah, but we got to talk about the new shifts in philosophy, in philanthropy. And this is a philosophic conversation because Craig's going to talk to us about what he sees, what's going on, what we should be thinking about. And really, we are in a time of a lot of change and tumult. I mean, we always are, but it seems like this is a new set of changes that we need to be thinking about. And so Craig's going to help us navigate this amazing conversation. We get to navigate amazing conversations every day because we have phenomenal presenting sponsors, most who've been with us since day one. And I didn't really announce this on Friday, but on Friday was our 1,400th episode, which you would have thought I would have done a bigger celebration, but we were busy and I don't know what happened. But anyway, these presenting sponsors have made our daily show possible. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Holdings Nonprofit Banking, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. And I just want to give a shout out to the Architecture of Fundraising. It's a new book that one of our co-hosts, Tony Bell of Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy, and I have collaborated on. It's great. It talks all about how to create a life in philanthropic fundraising and what you need to do and how you get people on board with you. And so you can pick it up at Amazon. More importantly, Craig Shelley, he's the CEO of Schultz Williams, of SchultzWilliams.com. And you can learn more about their group there on their website. Okay, so talk to us, Craig, about what you all do.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you all about some trends and what's going on out here in the world of fundraising. But yeah, Schultz Williams, for nearly 40 years, we've worked exclusively with nonprofits. We're a team of 50 or so fundraisers and strategists. We are based out of an office in Philadelphia, but we serve clients all across the country. And really, we do three things. We help nonprofits raise more money. We help nonprofits develop and build consensus around better strategies. And we help nonprofits market themselves to grow their donor bases, grow their membership bases, and grow their base of advocates.
Amazing. Do you do this like on a project basis where you're pulled in for a capital campaign or milestone marketing, or is this more like an ongoing, this is what your strategy should be moving forward? Or it's probably both, but
yeah, we can do both. I mean, right. We do capital campaign. I don't like the term feasibility studies because in some ways everything is feasible if you spend enough time and money, but so we do feasibility studies, we do campaign management, we do outsourced staff solutions. If you need a chief development officer, they're out on leave. But we also do strategic plans, or you have just one set of strategic issues you want us to help you navigate. And then we're also, our marketing arm really is focused on direct response, right? So direct mail, digital. We have an amazing team that does all that as well.
Awesome. Wow. Well, I think you're like the perfect person then to be talking about some of these things that you're seeing and your team is seeing. And so let's jump into this with the concept of trust and transparency. These are buzzwords that everybody's bandying about, trust, philanthropy. What do you see here?
It's an interesting time, right? And you're right. We've been talking about trust-based philanthropy for a while, and it means different things to different people. But in the context of right now in this moment, I feel like people are more skeptical of institutions than they ever have been before, which makes them lack trust in nonprofits, right? So I think for nonprofits, it's more important than ever to be clear about how you communicate, clear about what you're doing with funds, and really clear about your values. I mean, I think a lot in terms of like, there's been this huge, 180 shift in kind of how people think about equity and diversity. It went from like, you have to be for it to now you have to be against it. But if you're an organization that's what you do and it's core to what you do, like you can't, that is who you are. So be it, right? Like don't hide from it. And I think we're in a time when people are hiding from themselves because they're trying to say the thing that they think you want them to say. And I think that just creates or erodes trust even quicker, right? So that's kind of the baseline when I think about trust is right now people don't seem to trust anything. So you need to be about who you are and be clear and transparent.
It's so fascinating that you would say this. I was working with a board last weekend at a retreat, and the word fear came up, and how these board members, they work with such an august, important organization that has decades of perfect service, right? And even they were kind of owning that there's a certain degree of fear and they're afraid to say the wrong thing. And this is just being stewards of an organization. This isn't even like sitting across the table from a donor or stakeholder. And I was taken aback at how these high profile folks really were kind of, to your point, pulling back a little bit. And I was just shocked, actually, to be really honest with you. I found that they needed kind of like a rallying point. They needed confidence to say, look at what you do and how you do it. You should be super proud of this mission and don't fall into this miasma of fear.
Yeah, and you're right. I think fear is pervasive in so many parts of everybody's lives today. But like, and one of the organizations we work with, Third Way, they had maybe it was 2 months ago or so, they came out with like a list of words that like we in the sort of nonprofit social impact sector and political world like have made up words, right, that don't sound like the way real people talk. And I think that's one of the things that has started to scare people, right? Like I don't even know how to describe the thing that I'm trying to solve or the people I'm trying to help. And if I describe it the wrong way, suddenly I'm a problem, right? So I think that there's fear there. There's fear of, okay, what's going on with the economy? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, we've been threatened by a recession for, I feel like the last 3 years it's been coming. What is that going to do to donors? What are they going to stop giving? They haven't, right? All the data says, they continue to give generously, but there's this fear that that's going to stop. And then there's just the fear of like the future, right? Like, I feel like we're in a time, I think of over my life, so much has changed from technology, but now there's this new fear around AI. Like my son makes fun of me. He says that my job's going to, get replaced by AI, which I tell him someone's going to be the client out for drinks. So I'm good. Like I'm always going to have a job. It's, I just think there's a lot of fear in the world. And I think it comes into everything we do, and it's valid. I mean, I'm afraid, but I think you have to have confidence as a nonprofit leader. You have to have confidence in sort of your direction, your mission, your vision, your values.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of leaders. I know just in private conversations out and about in my community, the number of leaders that are saying, I've shifted my focus from task management to almost cheerleader. Yeah. Like I'm having to go out and really rah the team and the community more than maybe I ever have in the trajectory of a career. And I think that's really fascinating because it turns leadership into more of a charismatic aspect, which we've moved away from, right? We've become task management oriented as opposed to that charismatic, almost like in a sense of founders, like, which you associate, I think, a lot of these attributes to founders. And so it's kind of an interesting time. I'm curious about what you think about this leadership in this complex moment. Are leaders talking to you about this and asking for guidance, or what are you hearing about how they're combating this fear issue? And those are my words.
I mean, it is as complicated as it's ever been. And it's funny, I think, over the scope of my career, right? Like I remember when the first nonprofit I ever worked for, Boy Scouts in New York City, we had a great CEO. Everything was fantastic. And I think my perception of what he did as a CEO, well, let me describe it. And I'm sure I'm wrong, but my perception was he came in every day at 10:30. He
Oh,
met with his leadership team. He kind of yelled at them and told them what to do. He then left, went to the Italian restaurant around the corner, read the newspaper, drank a bottle of wine, had a great meal, came back around 2:30, met with that same group of people to find out if they did everything he wanted that day. And then at like 3:30, 4 o'clock, he went home, right? So like, I was like, this looks like a great job. I can't wait to be a CEO of a nonprofit. By the time I became a CEO of a nonprofit, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years later, whatever it was, the job was totally different. Like now you had to be a lawyer, an HR expert, a fundraiser, a spokesperson. And I was CEO of a Boy Scout council. So even like I had to understand why the latrine didn't work, right? Like there was all these things that just like it has become, I think, the most complicated job in the world. And now you layer in this current environment of fear. And I think you're right. Leaders have to be more than ever leaders, right? Like I think there's a, to your point, there's been a swing to kind of managers over the year. And I think there's a hunger in the world for leaders. And it's like, I think, I've only been in this role a couple months as we made some changes here, but like where I'm asked how I spend my time, like culture, it's like culture, brand, growth, right? Like those are the three things that I'm worried about every day and try and like, if I'm not moving the needle on those, but culture's first, because right now, if you can't motivate your employees and get them sort of on the same page, whether you're a small food bank or, the American Red Cross, you're not going to win, right? Like you've got to be able to have your people motivated, and you have to understand law and HR and fundraising and do all the things. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because in this type of leadership, we have a whole new wave of an ecosystem that is remote labor. And
Yeah.
I mean, you work across this country. You have folks from all over the place. It's not as simple as gathering everyone in the conference room or for a pizza party or around the water cooler, right?
Yeah, you have to be much more deliberate in how you interact with people, because you can't just walk out of, you can't, in my example of my now maligned first CEO, of like meeting with his team at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, right? Like that is not a thing. Like that's not going to happen naturally the way it did for him. You have to be very deliberate about how you interact with people. And I think leaders of nonprofits now, like with the complexity and all those issues, it's like you need to have stronger leadership teams, right? You need to have a team of people around you. But then most of us are under-resourced, right, as in nonprofits, right? So it's like, yeah, great, Greg, I'll go hire fantastic people. I don't have any money to pay me, right? So how am I going to pay them? And then, you need more outside expertise, right? So you've got this is like a shoe salesman telling you need shoes, but like you've got it's just complicated now. You can't assume that because you were a good fundraiser or a good program leader or a good chief operating officer, you're going to know how to be a good CEO. You've got to surround yourself with as many resources as you possibly can.
Right. It's such an interesting aspect, I think, to giving voice to it. Like you said, just understanding how different it is and what leadership looks like and what's needed is an amazing conversation. Because I think if you're a leader and you're feeling fear, your team has got to be under so much more pressure, right? I mean, it's not just an internal battle. It's a battle that's going on throughout all of our organization.
Yeah. And I mean, people key off of the CEO. It's funny. My favorite thing about my job is I get to work with a lot of CEOs, understand why they do what they do, how they do it, what they do well, what they don't do well. But it's interesting to me how many of them don't recognize that everybody keys off of them, right? Like you can't, it's a lousy job because you can't come in and be in a bad mood. You can't come in and tell people you're worried, right? Like you've got to find, go home and tell your spouse or tell your dog or, I tell my kids a lot of stuff. They have no idea what I'm talking about, but like you can't carry it into your organization. You've got to put on the face and be optimistic and drive forward.
Yeah. I love that you said that because, over the last like 5 to 8 years, there's been this big push towards authentic leadership and all of that. And I have been in the camp of there's no way in hell I'm going to lead my team with my authentic self, because it would be a hair and fire moment every day. Right. Yeah. And I've never been able to reconcile that. How do you lead and express, the stress and the doubts that you live with versus trying to uplift and empower the folks around you? And it's an interesting thing because when I talk to people, I think more my age, we all we wrestle with that. We can't understand how that meets. And so it's kind of a fascinating time, because we're talking about leaders, older leaders that have, a path and a certain process that they have, and then the younger leaders that have a whole different mindset, and we're trying to calibrate everybody. And so it's kind of an interesting time, in addition to just the demographics of leadership, in addition to what's going on socially. I want to ask you about technology and how you see technology being used, especially with such a distributed workforce, and managing people that are not in the same physical space, physical hub. What are you seeing, and what are your clients doing to kind of mitigate this new work environment?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think it gives you the false it gives you the false sense of relationship. Like what we're doing here gives us the false sense of relationship, right? And so you could do this all day long with your clients, with your employees, with your constituents, with your donors. And I'm sorry, in your heart that it's not the same as if you and I were at Camelback hanging out, right? Like we'll get to know each other a little bit, but like it's a very different kind of relationship. So the relationships aren't as deep, right? So when you talk about this idea of bringing your authentic self to work, right? Like, I think I'm a very fair leader. I can occasionally, be a bit of a jerk, right? Like, but when you have a deep relationship with someone, you kind of get past that, right? It's like, okay, like whatever, because yesterday Craig was great to me. So today we did something wrong and we got off on the wrong foot, whatever. But when the relationship is only this deep, that's, you can't do that, right? You have to sort of make sure everything is, stays at a certain level. And that's good and bad, right? Like I'm sure it's, maybe not everybody needs to, have their relationships be as deep with their coworkers, but you miss something. I mean, some of my best friends were people I worked with in our first office, and we spent a lot of time together. If we did a remote thing, we never would have been friends like that. So I think you have to use it, but you can't, sort of like forget about it. Or you can't forget that being in person actually matters, particularly if you're a fundraiser, and it's hard because donors will be like, you don't have to come see me. Let's just meet on Zoom, or let's just meet on Teams or whatever. You've got to push past that, because you're never going to have the relationship you want. So I think that's, it enables communication, but it sort of diminishes relationships. And I think you'd say that same thing about social media, like all of that, like in our lives. And then you've got this whole wave of AI coming, right? Like, and I think when I look at nonprofits, we're historically on the back curve, or on the behind the curve of technology, and bringing it on. If you're still debating if you should use AI, you've that ship is left. Like, so you need to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. It can drive efficiency. You can do things faster. You can automate things. I think of like a big organization I worked with a bunch of years back, Guide Dogs for the Blind, hundreds of thousands of donors. So how do the major gift offices figure out which of the direct mail donors they should pay attention to? Well, once we automated wealth screening and set in like certain criteria, if they hit these triggers, once a week, this report goes out to the gift officers and they follow up, right? Like that's a simple like automation that changed the entire way they raise money, right? And that stuff is abundant. You can automate thank you letters. There's just so many things. So you're missing out, I think, if you're not doing some of this.
How do you talk to your clients, and what do you observe in the industry with the sense with younger fundraisers or newer fundraisers who are more comfortable and who feel they can be more efficient, going online and having digital conversations? How do you navigate them to rethink that one-on-one, the power of one-on-one? Or do you?
No, I mean, I try and illustrate it, right? Like I try and, even in your relationships with those fundraisers, it's like, do you feel better that we're having this conversation in person, or would you feel better if we were having it, virtually? So that's sort of helping them understand that is a little bit of it. But I also think of and there's a great, a company Givesy version 2 AI, like they're doing these autonomous fundraisers, and it's fantastic. And it's a great way to reach donors that you can't, normally reach, and all the things. But it's like, if you want to have that relationship, like as a fundraiser, if you just want to have a digital relationship, your fear that you're going to get replaced by autonomous fundraisers is 100% valid, because you are bringing nothing more to the table than they can bring to the table as an AI empowered thing. Now, right? So you take a great tool to expand reach. If you diminish the way you do your job, that great tool becomes your replacement, right? So if for no other reason than self-interest, get out there and make relationships with your donors and your coworkers and all the things, because if not, who needs you?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that. I think that's really interesting, because I think that it's something that we haven't really fully understood, what the end game piece, and it's not really an end game. It's something that keeps changing every, as they say, 72 hours. But I think that it's really smart that you're bringing this up to really look at that human connection, because ultimately it's almost like what we were saying when we started off: task management versus leadership. You can
Yeah.
task manage yourself to death and then kind of forget about that human side of leadership and what you need to be, thinking about. I want to move on. We don't have a lot of time left with you, which is a shame, because I'm just fascinated by your observations and your connectivity to so many different types of nonprofits. But how do we take all these pieces of a changing sector? The philanthropic nature of people is not changing. I believe it's the environment which is changing, right? So how do we center people and partnerships, and how do we kind of bring it back in?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts, if you go back, to that idea of a CEO's job being more complicated than ever. But like, I think if you think about the concentric circles of people that are important to your organization, a lot of people look past the ones that are, right outside their office, right? So like, I think you have to recognize that the first set of people that are maybe your most important stakeholders are your staff, right? So you have to invest in those people. You have to think about things that make how do you make their jobs easier, right? Like, how do you remove obstacles to their being successful? Nobody's at your organization because they want to fail. So how do you empower them to be successful? How do you care about them, right? Like, I, to an annoying degree, ask people about their personal lives because I want to understand who you are and what makes you tick, right? So I would, when I'm thinking about centering people, I start with the group of people that you work with. Then I go out to your board, right? So how do you think about your board? How do you interact with them? Are they too many organizations I go into? They view the board as a nuisance, right? Like, any board members out there, hate to tell you this, most people think, they don't speak positively of their boards. And that's a two-way street. It's like, what have you built a relationship with them? Have you helped them understand what the organization is trying to do? Have you helped them understand your obstacles and the things that give you friction? And then you move out to your donors, right? And then your constituents, the people you serve, and you kind of keep going out. But at every level, building a relationship, understanding where they're coming from and why they're there, I think are critical. And then just taking a general interest in them, right? Like thing I have found that is, to any degree I've been successful in my career, I've just been curious. I actually don't even like people that much, I don't think, but I'm curious once I start talking to people to understand what makes them tick and why they do the things they do and why they said this. And then you understand why they're a donor or a board member or work for you or, use your services. Like, so it just starts with, there's some kind of level of curiosity about people that I think is imperative.
So let's drill down into this a little bit, because if you're an organization that you've never really had this approach, you've never even thought of this, or maybe you're a leader and you sense that something's wrong or that you can do better. How long does this start? I love your idea of these rings and then working out and expanding out. What would that look like to make that change? And I know that's a hard question to answer because it's different for everybody, but how do you see folks navigating this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is sort of recognizing that people are important, right? So there's a lot of people that don't like to deal with people, and that's fine. But if you want to lead an organization or lead a team or even be an effective member of a team, you're going to have to figure out how to interact with people. So I think step one is just acknowledging it. Step two, this idea of like authentic leadership, but there are limits to it. But I think you have to authentically be interested in the people around you. If you're not, maybe try and find a new role where you do find that to be true, right? Like it's, maybe you're not in the right job, but you should find people that you're interested in. And I think for all the talk in the world about, work-life balance, which I'm not going to knock. I mean, I think you can sort of integrate your life and it should all be one sort of thing and you should be happy. But off that soapbox, I would just say, like, for all the talk of work-life balance, you will spend more time with the people you work with than almost anybody else, right? So
Yeah.
why not try and engage that and sort of understand those people? So I would just say it's recognizing that people are important, recognizing you're going to spend a lot of time with these people, authentically engaging with them like people, right? Like, to your point, and my kids make fun of me. They say I have a work voice when they hear me like on Zoom or something, as opposed to the way I talk to them. But like, it's not that different. The things I'm talking about with my wife or my kids or my friends, I try and have as much as I can the same relationship with the people that fill those circles in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really an interesting thing to be having this conversation because I think in the nonprofit sector, we are so stressed out by the work that we're trying to do, the mission that we have, the people lined up at our, office door, whatever, that it's sometimes it seems like a luxury to come back in and focus in on ourselves, right? And so, which is a shame because it's at the core of a good investment. You made that comment. You got to invest in your people first, and training and support, figuring out what's working, figuring out what's not working. It's looking internally. I don't know. It's just such a hard thing, it seems, for our sector to do.
Yeah. Well, it's like right. So what's the airplane thing, right? You got to put your mask on first or whatever it is, right? Like you have to, like, if you're a miserable jerk, everyone around you is going to be a miserable jerk, right? So you get what you put into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, and it's kind of a soulful conversation and something to kind of take a deep breath, step back, figure out how we can de-escalate this fear, how we can maybe empower ourselves and our teams to look at things with a different lens. And because I do think that when you suffer this fear, it just freezes you up. It's really hard to be creative and empowered to do new things, try new things. And that's just never going to work.
Absolutely.
It's a retreat approach or strategy, and that's just not going to work. So really, really interesting conversation with Craig Shelley we've had today. He's the CEO of Schultz and Williams, and you can learn more about Schultz and Williams at schultzwilliams.com. They are really an interesting aspect. They have an interesting aspect of who they work with. And do you work in Canada or is it strictly the U.S.?
We have worked strictly in the U.S. We could work in Canada. There's a couple of hurdles we'd have to jump through, but we certainly would be open to it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, it's been a great conversation, and I really, really appreciate this opportunity to explore something a little differently. I mean, I think there are a lot of us, Craig, that we sense this, but we haven't been able to give voice to it, right? Yeah. And so today you've really helped us narrow this down and give voice to it. So I say thank you so much, and we'll have to get you back on.
No, thank you so much for reaching out and for having me on, and I enjoy the conversation, and let's talk more. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, we want to talk more every day, and we get to because we have amazing partners. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Holdings Nonprofit Banking, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. These are the folks that are the backbone of who support us here on the Nonprofit Show. As I mentioned, we just finished our 1,400th episode last week, and we are in our 6th year of broadcasting. So these folks really do make it possible for us. As we end each and every episode of the Nonprofit Show, we leave with this message. And it means something different to me every time I say it, every day I say it. And today it's really meaning something else yet again. And it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well.